We're going to share this microphone. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name's David Burch. I'm the sales director for a company called Arbor XR, which just 30 seconds on Arbor XR in case you're not familiar with us. We are a mobile device management platform built from the ground up to support XR devices. So we are completely device agnostic. So any device that you have in your fleet or are considering using in your fleet, you can completely control remotely, deliver content to that headset, control the headset experience so that when the user puts on the headset, they only see what you want them to see and have total control over. So we're very proud to be working with Volvo Group, represented here today by Matthew Connors. So Matt.
Hi, how you doing, everybody? I'm Matt Connors. I'm based in Gothenburg, Sweden, and I work for Volvo Group. So what that means is there's lots of different business areas that we have. Volvo Trucks, which you'll hear from Johan Kruse tomorrow about the journey that Volvo Trucks took into VR spaces. And also Volvo Construction Equipment, some internal groups like Volvo Group University. Basically, we're the digital and IT arm within Volvo Group that helps build out different types of XR experiences.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So as I mentioned, we're very happy to be working with you. And so for everybody to get a sense of the scale of what Volvo Group is doing today, it's several hundred devices currently worldwide with plans to scale tremendously in the next 12 months. So Matt, with that being said, can you give us a snapshot of how XR is being used across Volvo Group on a daily basis?
Sure thing. So we have different XR teams. So some of the teams are working more on the design side, really starting with the CAD data and understanding how that can be used, how it can be modified and viewed by teams all over the world. Then the teams that I work most directly with are using XR in slightly different ways, mainly in VR training, also in projected augmented reality, which is fairly new. It's kind of using AR technologies in factory floor environments to be able to showcase to individual people on the line if they have a particular process they need to move through. It uses basically a 3D capture and then a direct laser projection, which is kind of a new technology or has been new over the past couple of years. And then, of course, we have teams that are working in mobile AR. So let's say you have a physical product like a truck and you need to see the internal components of that truck. Our AR apps can do that. So that's a little bit of what we do in terms of the breadth of experiences that we build out.
And you build that internally today?
Almost all of it is done internally. We do partner with several different companies that are building experiences for us, but we do have internal teams. We have stable teams set up in an agile way that work in a couple different countries.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Matt. And so, Matt, currently you are primarily a Quest house, Quest ecosystem. So walk us through the process of deploying several hundred Quest headsets. What challenges did you face? How did you overcome those challenges, learnings, things of that nature?
Sure. So we were using Oculus for Business for a while, and the reason that we went with Oculus for Business is we had this need, especially to set up trainings in different parts of the world a couple of years ago, and Oculus just really fit the meta. Quest for Business was really functioning for us. On the Quest 2, when we moved into the Quest 3 and we realized that Oculus for Business was ending, it was going into end of life, then we needed to find some other way forward. So we looked at several different platforms, but found that Arbor was going to be a good fit for us. And because we're IT, the way we approached it was first running a pilot with a couple different networks that we had across the world, a few different markets. I think it was Germany, Norway, Sweden, and India. And so we used that pilot program, just running initially smoke tests and then user testing with a limited number of people to see that it was functioning properly for them, and then just started to roll it out. So I think we had 400 headsets at the time that we were trying to deploy into Arbor, and now it's closer to 600. So it's been a pretty good deployment. It took a couple months to get everything set up and running, but it's been running very smoothly ever since.
Awesome, thanks. And I know you sort of hit a little bit on this with the content, but can you dig deeper into some of the use cases that you have today? Maybe how you started, where you've migrated to, just things like that.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think what we started out with was more of the training focus, especially electromobility was one of the first trainings that we set up, and we set that up for Volvo Trucks. But then we started working on different types of training applications, and then more recently we've moved into sales and marketing. We were able to make that jump because we could deploy the apps very quickly. Having a device management system, especially when we were in the initial stage of building out the first version of the applications, if we could push it to people in different markets and run those tests, within very short notice, it could give us that feedback directly to understand, is this really meeting the needs of the market, especially with something like the launch of a new truck, to be able to bridge the gap between the marketing materials that were created and then actually getting something that people could see and react to in that time when the truck isn't yet available in the market physically.
I really regret it because I've seen this content and it's awesome. I had a 30-second clip and I left it at home. I'm a fool. But I would have loved to show you that. But it is really great what they're doing. So from a sales and marketing perspective, they're able to take a truck that, to Matt's point, it's not available yet, but put the users inside that. So send it out to the dealer network so they can have conversations with their customers, put their customers inside in a VR goggle, the headset, and go through the truck, experience that. And it's really, really cool content. So come by the booth or we'll email it to you. You can take a look. It's nice. So Matt, now that you've got the technology in place, what strategies are you using to encourage adoption at scale?
So a couple different things. We actually there's a cohort that I work with that his job is basically digital adoption. So he's going around to different parts of the business and explain to them how to use XR technologies. But a lot of times it's really meeting people where they are in terms of understanding the use cases. So my background is in UX. So this is very near and dear to my heart of making sure you're not just building something because we have the technology, but you're building something because there's a real need and because we can satisfy that need with an XR technology. And it's not just VR that we're doing right now, of course, as I described. So we want to investigate like what would be the solution. And then we have teams that are kind of recognizing, going through the business analysis and a UX review to understand, like, are we building the right thing? I think that's the essential kind of step we've taken. A lot of us who have been working with these technologies for a long time, we started by being in this kind of innovation cycle. And then you have to get mature, you have to step forward and say, okay, we're beyond just the innovation. Is this really making sense for people in their day-to-day?
And are you guys able to, not trying to have you put numbers to that, but how easy is it for you to determine if it is making sense for users day-to-day?
Well, it depends. I think in some cases it might be, is it making sense to reduce cost? There are a couple cases where it did make sense to have a VR experience because then you could reduce the travel costs to get people in front of a vehicle or to know exactly what the parts were or to make sure that they're not doing something that's unsafe. You couldn't schedule those trainings in a physical location, especially a couple years ago when COVID was in full swing. And that was what made sense. In other cases, it might be, do I understand what's in front of me? Does it make sense the first time I step in front of this picking solution if you're at a Volvo construction equipment site? So it really depends on what the business area thinks is important.
Yeah. And talk to us a little bit about, if you can, just user feedback in general, or in specifics if you'd like, just on your XR program.
Yeah, we have different ways of collecting user feedback, and some of it is more, being able to work directly with people, especially when we've developed a new application. The truck launch that I was describing a little while ago, that was earlier this year, so it was the Arrow launch. There were several different versions of a truck, and we had a great opportunity where we could test it with about 1,800 people over a several-week span, where we invited dealers from all around the world to come to Gothenburg and try out these new trucks in real life. What was kind of fascinating to me is I thought that if you'd asked me ahead of time, I would have thought they would say, this isn't quite as good as the real truck. But they really appreciated the experience to be able to see the digital version of the truck in VR as well as see the real thing. And some of their responses were very different. Being able to see it in more of a social environment. A lot of our experiences are multi-user, so in this case it's up to 10 people that are participating at the same time to view the vehicle. And they really enjoyed that format in a different way than actually seeing it as the physical truck itself. But we have different ways of getting the user feedback. In a lot of cases, that's the best case when we can have someone go through the VR experience fully and then just be able to talk to them afterwards, understand what it was that they felt strongest about, what would we want to add more of into the application, what would be more compelling for them. We're not really using it in that case as a sales tool. It's more of the overall brand experience. Do you feel that this truck is being represented properly? Does it make sense to you? Do you have an understanding of what would be available in this market in a couple of months?
Interesting. And speaking of Volvo Trucks, there is a presentation tomorrow Johan Cruiser will be doing that, so I don't know if you do a quick plug for that or not. But
yeah, I think it's 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, come back tomorrow.
Definitely, because he'll go over kind of what is the change management they've gone through at Volvo Trucks to really employ more training, especially in VR.
Awesome. So the question that I have to ask, because everybody asks this question, but so what do you think, Matt, the future of XR looks like? Maybe you can start with, what do you think it looks like within Volvo Group and then maybe as a whole?
At Volvo Group, I think what's really interesting to me, so if you'd asked me this question maybe a year ago, it would be different than it is now. I've seen more of an interest in mobile AR applications, especially because we do have content, because we're dealing, I mean, this is a very particular need in manufacturing. We're dealing with CAD data that we then need to translate into immersive spaces or for the web, right? It's very complicated. The hierarchy structures are different from team to team. So we have a 3D pipeline that is set up to basically take that information and make it as manageable as possible and then reusable by different teams. But because of that, it now means that we can use the content that we've prepared, let's say for VR or for a web configuration. We can then use that for a mobile AR application, especially if someone's trying to train on a particular set of steps or about an engine type. It's really useful. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, the fact that we've got tablets that are available in many different markets has made people kind of sit up and say, okay, we can do a mobile AR app and get this up and running fairly quickly.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's kind of a surprise. But I do think it leans me towards what I think would be great is more of this kind of convergence of the virtual space and the mixed reality and augmented space. And I think we've seen that with a couple headsets released recently. Some of them are more geared towards the personal market, like Apple Vision Pro is fantastic. Yeah. But it's not so much of a fit for my type of market because we use a lot of kiosk-based systems or kiosk-based experiences. So it's a more personalized device. I feel like if there's something like that that is more usable for a variety of people, because sometimes we have trainers, and then a trainer will use that same device for other people to do a sales demo or something like that. That kind of flexibility in a device, I would love to see. So maybe it's more of a wish list than where I think the market is going, but I hope the market is going that way.
I'm sure the market is listening to you, Matt, so that's good.
I don't know. I don't think my voice is that big.
I disagree. Well, thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate it. So we wanted to leave time for questions, so there certainly is. While you're thinking of your questions, just love to visit with you all at the Arbor XR booth if you have time and are interested. Hear what you guys are doing in XR today. Answer any questions that you may have regarding us. So love to take the opportunity to get to know each of you a little bit better if that works for you guys. So with that said, we do have a few moments, in fact 10, for any questions for myself or for Matt. Anybody? Yes, I think, yeah, come on up to the mic. Don't be shy.
So my question is about the sales experience, because you mentioned obviously that you guys were using it in different ways. In terms of the implementation of the sales, I'm assuming that was obviously in sort of a VR experience where you sit inside the truck in VR. Right. Was it specifically chosen to be VR? Was there a decision around potentially using the mixed reality version where someone could potentially sit in a real or showroom floor and then put on a mixed reality headset and then see the car? And how easy was it to implement that on the sales side of things?
So it's a couple questions in one, so I'll try and take it piecemeal. So the decision was made that it would be VR because at the time we were using mainly the Quest 2 headsets, right? So the pass-through wasn't really an option to show the vehicle fully. And we also knew that it would be deployed into an existing batch of headsets. We already had 400 headsets that it could be deployed to, so it needed to be VR because of that. We don't have the same network in terms of AR or even other types of headsets. We do use HoloLens 2 quite a bit at Volvo Group, but not at that kind of scale. So that was why it was chosen to be VR. And then we actually had a very tight timeline, so we needed to make the features fairly specific. Show the truck, make sure it's a positive experience, show some of the video content that's within it. So it needed to be really tailored, and also that it was going to be a multi-user experience, so you could have up to 10 people guided by a host, subject matter expert usually, that would take you around to different points around the truck. So it was very specific what we were doing, and we knew that pretty quickly within the first couple of weeks based on the timeline that we had. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good question. Who else? Yeah, please.
So you said you have used your VR experiences for the dealers in the showroom.
Yeah.
Have you also talked to actual end users, so maybe the drivers of the truck, to get feedback on their experiences?
So a lot of the dealers either were drivers or sometimes brought their drivers to the experience. So we do have some of that feedback, but not a lot of detailed feedback. Yeah, it's more anecdotal that we get from the dealers at this point.
Okay. Are you planning to do that? Have you considered it as a useful option? Or?
So there are experiences that are built by some of our other brand teams that are more about the driver experience itself. So it's not a driver sim, the experience that I was talking about, but we do have some driver sims. In those cases, they do collect user feedback to get a better understanding what needs to be built into driver sims.
Thanks.
Sure.
Who's next? Don't be shy. We're nice guys. You can ask anything. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate your time. Enjoy the conference. Have a wonderful afternoon.